Good morning. I'm Jake Sherman, co-author of the Politico Playbook. I'm joined by my colleague and Playbook co-author Anna Palmer to host a virtual Playbook interview with Maryland Governor Larry Hogan to talk about the impact the coronavirus has had on his state, how Maryland is approaching reopening its economy, and much more.
That Politico to the governor about all things Maryland, but just wanted to remind you that if you have a question for him, you can tweet with the hashtag #AskPolitico, and we'll try to get through those throughout the conversation.
Let's get started. Thank you, Governor Hogan, for joining us. A lot of our viewers are not only going to be interested in the politics of this, but also the substance, because I imagine we have a lot of Maryland and DC residents watching today. So could you just give us an overall view of the landscape as you see it in your state right now?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to join you today for these important discussions. I appreciate the opportunity. We're in the Washington metropolitan area, including Maryland, DC, and Virginia. We've taken some of the earliest and most aggressive actions to try to mitigate and to flatten the curve, kind of flatten and lengthen that curve. So we are a little bit behind some of the other states that didn't take those actions. And we're not going to have, hopefully, the spikes nearly as bad. But we are still on that upward trajectory. And so we now have in the region, as of yesterday, more than 27,000 total cases. And we're still on the upswing with respect to, unfortunately, hospitalizations, with respect to folks going into intensive care, ICU beds, and with our deaths in all three jurisdictions. So we're hopeful that some of the steps we're taking are going to mitigate the trajectory and lower the trajectory, but unfortunately we're still kind of gradually climbing and not able to start getting over that hump yet, like some of the states that peaked earlier.
The big focus right now, of course, is reopening the economy across the country, and each state is taking its own kind of tact in that. What's the current timeline you're working with, and how confident are you that once Maryland reopens, it's not going to have to, kind of shut down or pull back again?
Well, that's the really tough and important question. So we have these twin problems that we're dealing with at the same time. We're trying to save lives and protect people and stop the spread. But at the same time, we've got this just terrible economy with people that really are suffering, that are filing unemployment, people who've lost their jobs, small businesses that aren't able to open. And so I think every one of us wants to get things opened as quickly as we possibly can, as long as we do it in a safe and smart way. And that's really the way that the federal plan calls for, kind of a smart, slow, gradual opening. And it says you shouldn't even begin. It says states should not consider starting that until you have 14 days of kind of numbers starting to go down. And none of the states in the Washington, Baltimore corridor and the Virginia, DC, Maryland region are at that point yet. But we're hoping that when we get there, to start gradually, opening things in a safe, effective, and smart way. We're not going to flip a switch. We've been working on this for 3 or 4 weeks now with some of the smartest folks in the country, folks from Johns Hopkins, Tom Inglesby, who wrote the report for Hopkins, along with Scott Gottlieb, who's the former FDA commissioner, who put together, was on the president's task force, but also put together the plan for AEI. And through NGA, which I chair, the National Governors Association, we put out a plan. So our plan in Maryland is going to take the kind of the best ideas from 5 or 6 or 7 other plans, get the input of lots of really smart scientists and doctors and public health officials and business folks about how can we reopen your business in a safe and effective way, and how do we gradually get people back to normal without having that giant spike and that overload of our healthcare system. We're going to announce tomorrow our Maryland Strong Roadmap to Recovery, we call it, where we're not going to be flipping a switch tomorrow, but we're going to be laying out kind of a very detailed plan about how we think we can do that safely when the numbers are right.
Sorry, could you preview that a little bit? I mean, what does that plan, in your estimation, what does it look like?
Sure, a little bit. I mean, before we, the kind of the building blocks of that, before we could even put the plan together, we had to have adequate testing, which was critical to states all across the country, so we can identify how many people we have that have the virus and where they are, and then contact tracing to make sure we contact the folks that they've come in contact with. We had to have adequate PPE, personal protective equipment. And we had to be able to be ready for hospital surge for people that were going to be potentially overloading the system. So we've been working on all four of those. Yesterday, I did an announcement at Laurel Hospital in Prince George's County that we reopened. It's been closed for many years. We reopened it in 37 days. We've added 6,700 hospital beds in a little over, I guess, 41 days, which is kind of an amazing accomplishment. We got ventilators, we got more ICU beds. We brought in surge tents to supplement certain locations. On the PPEs, while it's still not a great situation, we're much better than where we were. We have millions of things coming in every day. And with respect to contact tracing, we signed a contract yesterday to bring in another 1,000 folks, and we launched a website that we think is going to be kind of cutting edge. And the last part of that was the testing, which has been the biggest problem in America. And we just a few days ago announced that we had acquired 500,000 tests from South Korea, which is going to help us tremendously. And that's more than 4 of the top 5 states in America added together have done in the past 40 days collectively. So that's the beginning of our plan, and then it starts with phases and low risk, medium risk, and high risk businesses, which are kind of based on high touch or low touch, physical distancing, certain things. We'll be able to get some kind of quality of life things back where people can get out of their homes, get outside, do things, and still in a safe way. Perhaps some small businesses with limited numbers of people, businesses opening in a safe way with masking and distancing. But it's going to still be a while before you start to see anything that involves people being close together. We're going to still encourage as much teleworking as possible, and we're still not going to be ramping up some of those non-essential businesses with lots of folks. There's decisions made yesterday on Metro that'll extend through the end of May. Schools, we have pushed off to another until May 15th to make a final decision about whether they're going to remain closed for the rest of the year. So there's hundreds of different things that'll be involved in it, but it's a very well thought out plan with lots of very smart people that are weighing in. And these are decisions we want to make carefully and gradually and safely, kind of weighing those. How do we, get people that are hurting economically back to work? How do we get people out of their homes that are going stir crazy with like you, without endangering them and driving those spikes back up? So we're just getting all the best advice we can on how to do that.
So the Labor Department, you talked about kind of the unemployed numbers are coming out this morning. They reported 4.4 million in the US jobless claims today. That's on top of roughly 22 million Americans who are out of work because of the coronavirus. What's your message to kind of out of work Marylanders who want to get back to work? I mean, what do you say to them? I mean, obviously health and safety is important, but these people are trying to figure out how they're going to put food on their tables. Yeah,
well, this is the thing that keeps me awake at night, almost more so than anything else. I'm really worried about those folks, and I understand how difficult this is. So we're doing a lot of things. We've had more unemployment claims filed in the past month and a half than we had in the whole entire year before. So that's the kind of need that we have out there. And the federal government has taken some steps to try to help with that, including people that are not W-2 employed, that are not regular normal W-2 employees. So 1099 people, contract workers, independent contractors can now for the first time also get some benefits. And we've ramped up our ability to try to get them their checks as fast as possible. We've started up some state programs, but we're also trying to process all those federal unemployment claims, which is just a huge surge. And we're trying to get those folks back to work as soon as we possibly can. We've got business programs to try to keep those small businesses from laying off those folks. So grants and loans to protect some of those employees who the small businesses have the most difficult time, I think, keeping some of them. So we've been working at it from all directions, but the real goal is let's get them back to work, and let's do it in a way that's going to keep them safe. But it really is, there's no question that this economy is hurting a lot of people.
The president, I don't want to spend a ton of time on him specifically, but I want to hear how you deal with your differences of opinion with the administration. A lot of people struggle with that in today's day and age, and I'm curious if you have any reflections from this incident where you and other governors are taking so much more of a central role than probably ever before in our at least recent history, and in such a big event, and how you deal with differences you may have with the Trump administration.
Well, I've got kind of the unique role in that not only am I dealing with him as a governor who's on the front lines of the crisis, right here as the next door neighbor governor surrounding Washington, and a member of the same political party, but I'm also the chairman of the national governors. So, we've had, yesterday we had our 16th conference call with all the nation's governors. We've had, I think, 11 of them with the president and or vice president that I've been kind of leading for on behalf of the governors, and I've had to kind of collect all of our concerns and issues and problems and address them to the president, the vice president, the coronavirus team. Sometimes, it was thanking them for the work that they're doing, and sometimes it's pushing on things that we believe that the governors need help on. I guess the way I've tried to handle it is, there certainly are people who are trying to be confrontational and they just want to be critical. I've tried my best to kind of walk, and this is just the way I've always been. I've tried to be this way, not just in this crisis, but I try to, in my role as NGA chair, I represent Democratic and Republican governors in all the states. And I've tried to be as fair and direct as possible, but also I'm pretty blunt about I say exactly what we think, and sometimes that doesn't make the president happy. But I don't go out of my way to poke the bear or to criticize them unnecessarily. I just try to be helpful with suggestions about the things that we really need, and I try to push for the things that we need.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell yesterday suggested that the federal government should allow states to enter into bankruptcy proceedings. I wonder what you think of that, and what the NGA, which you're head of, as you just said, thinks of that in terms of, I can't imagine it's something that governors or states are supportive of.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Look, Mitch McConnell, I think, probably regrets saying that, and I don't think.
Do you think so? I'm not really sure he does regret it.
Well, I think he's going to.
I hope he regrets saying that.
If he doesn't regret it yet, I think he will regret it, and I think he's going to change his mind about that. The last thing we need in the middle of an economic crisis is to have states all filing bankruptcy all across America and not able to provide services to people who desperately need them, and further exacerbating the problems of this economic crisis that we have. So, I've talked to Mitch McConnell, I've talked to the leaders in the Senate and the House, both sides of the aisle. The governors have been pushing for a $500 billion package to assist the governors and the states to try to deal with this crisis. We've been on the front lines. We've taken the tough actions that were required of this, were the actions that the federal government asked us to. And now we have to continue providing those services for the states. For my small state, for example, just until July 1, we're going to have a $2.8 billion shortfall. We have $1 billion rainy day fund, stashed away, and we have a AAA bond rating, one of the few states that do, but we could be in a terrible financial situation. I heard some comment about this is just a bailout for blue states or something to that effect. That's complete nonsense. These are well-run states. There are just as many Republicans as Democrats that strongly support this. The president has committed to support the $500 billion in the forced stimulus bill. There's a bipartisan bill in the Senate, and with Republicans and Democrats already signed on board. And I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to, between the administration and the 55 governors in America, including the territories, we're going to convince Senator McConnell that maybe he shouldn't let all the states go bankrupt.
Yeah, because McConnell said, and this I think will play a big role in the coming weeks, that you alluded to this, that some of these states have not been good financial stewards, and plus the federal government is running into a massive deficit is just spending. I think the government has spent in the last 2 months, $2.5 trillion, which now the majority leader finds to be objectionable. I mean, I guess you'd be in the camp of it's time to spend money and worry about the rest of it later, it sounds like.
Well, it's where all the governors are. It's not just my opinion. This is the NGA's position, and there may be one or two governors in the country that don't feel that way, but it's a pretty solid position among Republican governors and Democratic governors. And it's not about people that didn't manage their states well. Like I said, we have done a pretty good job of managing our state fiscally. I have a AAA bond rating, and people are pretty pleased with the direction until this thing happened. States are the ones that are kind of closest to people's problems. And we're going to try to help some of these small businesses, help these people who are suffering with their needs. Where the states are going to have the revenue to do that. We don't have the revenue to do it. We don't have a printing press like the federal government does. So, it'd be nice to get some assistance from them directly. They've done some good things on some of the stimulus, but not one penny of any of it has come to the states to be able to make up for the hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue loss that we have.
Can I just add one more on this topic, then I'll let Anna take over. But is there anything specifically? I know you laid out the direct assistance to states. Is there anything else that the government has not done that it needs to do in the next stimulus bill, or that the government has done that it needs to do more of in the next stimulus bill?
Well, I think that's the big one thing that's missing. Look, I think they've done a great job, and I want to compliment. I was kind of taking a shot there at my good friend Mitch McConnell. I mean, I think they did a good job, both the Republicans and Democrats, coming together, which is unusual in Washington, in a pretty fast manner in a short period of time. They came together to get all these bills through on the first 3.5 stimulus bills. And I think getting money out to the people that really needed it, getting money out to the small businesses who needed it, getting money out to the hospitals, getting all the things that they've done, I think were good and can be effective. And there's just one part of it, I think, that they missed, and that was the assistance to state and local governments.
I just want to ask one quick question on that. I mean, how much money do you think Maryland is going to need? When you 500 billion total, but what does your state need?
Well, as I just in the 90-day period by July 1, we're going to be short by $2.8 billion, to give you an example, and it's not over yet. And we're looking at budgets that start July 1 that'll go into next year. So the governors put together a detailed proposal that we submitted to. We worked with Secretary Mnuchin on the National Governors Association, again, completely bipartisan. All the Republicans and Democrats came together on it, worked with the vice president and the president, seemed to have support from them. We have some support from Republican senators and Democratic senators. And I think Mitch McConnell, I think hopefully we'll be able to get him on board.
All right, let's shift gears here a little bit. Big news over the last couple of days was your wife playing a big role in helping broker a massive shipment of coronavirus tests from South Korea. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came together?
Sure. Well, this is a perfect example of how it really pays off. To have states involved in diplomacy and doing business overseas. So my wife happens to have been born in South Korea, and my very first trade mission when I got elected in 2014, right after I became governor, I went to South Korea and then Japan and China. And that trip to South Korea, it really started a friendship back and forth, where we did a lot of business together with South Korean companies, Maryland businesses doing business there, cultural exchanges, some of our universities, and we developed a pretty good relationship. My wife speaks fluent Korean. She sort of became a rock star over there in Korea almost. They kind of ignored me when I went to Seoul, and they were saying, "First lady, First lady."
Yeah, I'm surprised so you're not a celebrity in South Korea.
No, not at all. I was just a guy carrying the first lady's luggage when I went there, but she was a big deal. But anyway, so when President Moon and the First Lady came here to Washington for the first time, we sat with them at lunch in Washington and got to know them pretty well. I'm the chair of the NGA. We had in February, we had an event at the Korean ambassador's residence. My wife asked them if they would host the governors. First time all of America's governors ever went to the Korean ambassador's residence. And President Moon came on the screen there and said how proud they were of my wife. She's the first Korean American first lady in the history of any state in America. Wow. And then he called me a Hanguk Sai, which means a son-in-law to the Korean people, which later it really turned out to mean something because about sometime in the middle of towards the end of March, we started talking with the ambassador. My wife was talking in Korean, talking about our special relationship and how we really desperately needed testing because there just wasn't enough testing in any states in America. Korea had done a great job on this. And we negotiated over a 22-day period, day and night. It's a 13-hour time difference, a language barrier, 8 of our state agencies working with them, with 2 Korean companies, working through multiple levels of translation, scientists back and forth confirming. And we were able to get 500,000 tests. We arranged to have a Korean Air passenger jet fly to BWI Airport, first time ever they landed there. No passengers on board, but packed with 500,000 tests that we believe are going to save thousands of lives in our state. And we can't thank First Lady, whose relationship really helped. And also we can't thank enough the Republic of Korea for their assistance.
And there's 2 layers to this I find interesting. The first layer is the fact that states have to step in the void here and do this is just remarkable because our system of government naturally doesn't lend itself to that. But number 2, I wonder if there's any lessons that this kind of, and it's not rogue diplomacy, but it's in a sense rogue diplomacy because states naturally shouldn't have to do this. I wonder if there's any lessons that you could impart for other states here.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, it's unusual, right, for a state to go cut a deal with another country to get tests that you couldn't get in your own country. I would say that is unusual. But in this whole crisis, I think they made it clear that the states are on the front lines. The states are taking responsibility. The president said over and over again, testing is a local thing. Governors should go out and do their own testing. Now, I'm not sure whether everyone agrees with that or not, but that's what he decided. So we went out and did it. We were searching from every domestic company in America. We were trying, fighting and clawing to get tests from the federal government, from every American producer, from every company. And we searched all around the world, and we were successful in getting this because of, not just because of the personal tie, but because of the diplomacy we had ongoing. States do, we have 17 offices around the world for the state of Maryland. So we do have, we do business internationally. We don't do trade policy, but a big part of our economy is the business that we do with people, businesses in other parts of the world. And so states should and can, on an ongoing basis, develop those relationships. And this was just an example of how that can really come in handy sometimes. Before it was just, hey, let's bring a few companies in from this other country, create some jobs here in our state. How could we have some Maryland businesses sell more of their products and bring in more revenue to our state? This was about saving people's lives in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. It wasn't something we ever planned for when we started these relationships, but I think other governors, do similar kinds of things. And the governors have had to step up into this void, right? I mean, we were told to, and I'm just pleased that we were successful in doing it.
I want to shift gears here a little bit to we are in an election year, obviously, and there's a lot of focus on whether it's going to be safe to go to the polls in November, but you moved the Maryland primary to June 2nd. Do you think it will be safe for people to go to polling places at that time?
I don't think it will be, which is why, I moved it to June 2nd and then asked the State Board of Elections, which is an independent autonomous group. I asked them to come up with a plan of how they could conduct the election by mail and do it in a safe manner so that we don't have people going out to the polls. They came up with a plan because of there were certain people who could not vote by mail. It was mostly people with disabilities. It was a couple of blind advocates, some people that didn't have fixed addresses. So they made accommodations for just one safe polling place in each county for people that could not do the by mail. But we're strongly encouraging everyone in our state to vote by mail in the June primary because we don't think it's going to be safe. We don't think we can get the poll workers or the PPE, and we don't think we should have hundreds of people standing in lines at polling places.
And how about November? I mean, November is quickly approaching, and your party on Capitol Hill has basically said we're not interested in vote by mail because it disadvantages us. I'm not sure there's any evidence of that, but I'm curious what your thought is.
Well, the my party in Capitol Hill doesn't really have anything to do with it. I think the state boards of elections will make those determinations, and their governors of those states are going to make the determinations based on what's safe in their states. In our state, we're going to see how it works in the June primary, and then assess what things look like in the fall. But our state board of elections, working in conjunction with our health department, will make those determinations. I would say it's still, we've always had the ability to do vote by mail. I mean, we have the ability to do absentee ballots for any reason at any time, and we have early voting, and it's worked very well. The difference here is everyone will be mailed a ballot as opposed to requesting one, and we could easily do that for the November election. It could be if it's safe, we could do a combination of both. But we have plenty of time to make those determinations, and we're going to do it based on. There's two goals. One, I want to make sure everybody has, their constitutional right to get out and express their vote. And two, we want to make sure everybody's safe. And we're going to try to accomplish both those things.
So obviously you're focused on this kind of first reentry and reopening of the economy, but there are a lot of predictions about another surge of the coronavirus in the winter. How concerned are you about that? And are you already starting to prepare for maybe a potential pullback and having to kind of shut things down again?
Well, that's one of the things that I think really concerns me and a lot of other people. You heard a lot of talk about that yesterday with Dr. Robert Redfield and Dr. Fauci talking at the press conference in Washington. It's also something that we have a coronavirus task force. I mentioned earlier a couple of these guys that are on there, Scott Gottlieb, Tom Inglesby. We have representatives from most of our top hospital systems and our smartest public health doctors in our state. We have some of the best medical institutions in the world, and we're getting their advice. And it's something that we've been talking about for a while. It does concern the experts that this virus has the potential to come back. It's factored into our thinking and our planning about, why we're doing it gradually and carefully. If we just were to flip the switch and open things back up, like a lot of people want, like let's get it open. There's no question it would be worse and flash back in the fall. And then we're in a much worse position. The economy will be much worse. More people will lose their jobs and more people will die. So we're just all trying to avoid that. And we can't stop the virus right now. Until we get a vaccine, it's not going to stop. We just have to try to keep it lower rather than spiking either now or in the fall. And it's just a hard thing to figure out. None of us have ever been through it before. We're trying to do it the right way.
Two things, and I'll take a point of personal privilege before we have to wrap up. I want to hear your take. The Baltimore Orioles and the Baltimore Ravens, are they going to be playing either sport? I mean, maybe Orioles fans hope the Orioles won't be playing this year, but is either sport going to be playing?
Hey.
Hey, listen, I'm a Nationals fan. So
I could tell.
I go after the Orioles, but I mean, there's a lot of talk about this. The president's certainly eager. What's your thought on no fans or all the different options on the table?
I'm a huge sports fan, and in spite of your comment about the Nats and the Orioles, hey, the Orioles did not lose on opening day this year. I could tell you. That's one good.
Not yet.
They haven't lost the game all year. I got to tell you, so we're looking good this year. No, I would love to see us be able to get back to playing sports because I don't know about you, but I'm tired of watching games from 20 years ago on the sports channels. But I think it's going to be quite a while before we start seeing people in the stands. And I know some of the different sports leagues are having discussions about, are there ways to, play the games without fans? Because most of their revenue and most of the people watching are on television, right? Not the ones sitting in the stands. We actually did play one Orioles game with no fans during the riots right after I was elected governor. It was the first one ever, I think, in Major League Baseball. But it's not the way. I mean, I'd love to get things back to normal, but I hope they can get back to some way of doing it with. But I don't see us packing stadiums full of people or filling the Camden Yards anytime really soon. I mean, I'd love to see it, but I'm not sure how that's going to happen.
And another point of personal privilege, we talked about this before, but I want to get you on the record on this critical issue. Will golf courses in your state open anytime?
Is there a particular golf course that you would like to have open?
I'll leave that alone. I think all golf courses are going to follow your lead, but if one were interested in golf in the great state of Maryland,
if someone were interested in golf, I think opening golf courses will be, I'll give you a sneak preview. I think it will be one of the early things that we do in the first part of our reopening. We probably will still have to be, I don't see you being able to hang at the bar with your buddies in the clubhouse, but I think you'll be able to get out there and, take a few swings in the grass in a safe way. So we're going to work hard to get you out there.
God bless you. Anyway, unfortunately, we are running out of time. Governor Hogan, we want to thank you for joining us. Very informative, very fun, and we appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
If you've enjoyed this briefing and don't already receive Playbook, we invite you to subscribe to Playbook. All you need to do is text PB to 66866. Stay safe and have a great week. Thanks so much.